Hey guys, Steven here, Fanatic Perspective. I'm back here with Mr. Austin Taylor, our Big 12 guru. He was live on site in Stillwater, watching his alma mater, the Oklahoma State Cowboys, defeat the Texas Longhorns, and a brutal loss for Steve Sarkisian's group. We are now, 5-3, and Oklahoma State, TCU, Kansas State are ahead of us in the Big 12 standings. So we're going to break down, have a little post-mortem conversation regarding this football game, and then talk a little Big 12 outlook at the end of this. Austin, how you doing, brother?
I'm good, man. Hanging in there. It was a wild day in Stillwater for sure, but excited to be on and ready to chop it up a little bit.
Let's get after it, man. Well, hey, everybody that follows us and supports this channel, guys, we really appreciate the feedback on the first video. A lot of great comments and talking points. In Austin, you got some good feedback and reviews. So, happy to have you on and have, just good, talking ball as we always do here. But, it's free to show love. So hit that like button, subscribe. Shout out to our sponsor. Some of y'all made some easy money on the over. At least we both, Austin, I think we both picked the over.
Yeah.
At the time we were on, BUSR had it at 61. At game time, it actually dropped to 58.5, due, mostly to the wind and spent some questions about Spencer Sanders. But easy over there. But BUSR.com/fanatic, the official sponsor, the official sportsbook, the official betting partner of Fanatic Perspective. I made some money last night on Justin Fields, Bears Patriots, by the way. I parlayed the over on Justin Fields, 10.5 carries, and Justin Fields, 44.5 rushing yards. Went over on both. Nice little parlay. Was plus 230. We're able to get it done. So if you're looking for a reliable betting partner, hit up BUSR. And, our brand new sponsor, I'm actually rocking a Last Stand hat right now. Our friends over at Last Stand Hats, laststandhats.com/fanatic perspective. Use that promo code Fanatic10, 10% off at checkout on all apparel. We got another beautiful hat there. Oklahoma State merch as well. Got some great merch there for the Pokes. Those of you guys up there that are the victors in Stillwater. But shout out to Last Stand Hats. Use that Fanatic10 promo code. Austin, I want to get to you, man. So, and you guys follow Austin on Twitter and all the socials and whatnot. But Austin, this football game, you were there. Just your takeaways. I know you gave us in our preview video, you gave us some keys for Texas, some keys for Oklahoma State. So I just want you to roll, brother, and I'll go from there.
Yeah, I mean, it was a normal, typical Big 12 dogfight, and then another kind of normal, typical Texas big lead in the first half, and then almost a hold on for dear life. But winning on the road is just so hard, and obviously we saw Oklahoma State make some adjustments that Texas failed to do, whether that was execution or play calling. We'll get into a little bit of that, but I think it would be a good idea to kind of go over some keys that I had for victory for Texas, and then just kind of see if they happen or not. And my number one key to victory was for Quinn to get in a rhythm early. I think we can both agree that did not really happen. First play of the game was supposed to be a little pick play to Xavier Worthy, thrown a little bit behind him, and you're already behind schedule at 2nd and 10, just immediately starting the game off. Texas ran that play, I think, in the second half, and Worthy took it for 20 plus. So who knows? You know how big momentum is in this game. I mean, obviously one drive is one drive, but if Texas, that opening script gets rolling, you never know. And then my number two key to victory was for Texas offense to sustain long drives. Just a quick little peek at the drive chart in the second half. Texas went punt, field goal, punt, miss field goal, interception, ball game. That's quite the opposite of sustaining long drives, right? And then the last key to victory that Texas had, in my opinion, to win the game was to stop the run and control the line of scrimmage. I would give that a 50-50, to be honest. I think Oklahoma State was like 4.5 on the ground, which isn't too bad. But I'd say for the most part, Texas didn't get gashed really in the run game. Spencer Sanders used his legs a little more in the second half, and we saw, Ovie Ogofu over pursue on what I'm guessing he thought was a screen. Sanders recognizes that, picks that
And he
up.
was supposed to be he was assigned to be the spy on that play and
Mhm.
just blew the assignment. So that
Right.
was more of a execution thing.
Yeah. And then, keys to victory for Oklahoma State. Spencer Sanders had to be great, and I think he did what he needed to do to do so. Oklahoma State had to run the ball well and effectively. TCU made them one dimensional. They did what they had to do there. And then special teams. I will say Texas did win the special teams battle, which I did not foresee happening. I don't think you foresaw that happening either. They had a blocked punt, Jeff
I
Banks
did call the
special.
block punt. I
Yep,
did
you
tell you
did.
we were going to block a punt, but the
Absolutely.
rest of that stuff I didn't see.
And then, Trejo pinning him down on the one, which leads to a 3 and out, which leads to Worthy getting a pretty big chunk of return yards. I think they got it down to the 25 or 30. And then what happened after that drive for Texas? No bueno. So could not do a whole lot with it. I think got 3 there, but, it was a real struggle to just get on the board in the second half. 3 total points scored in the second half. Oklahoma State scores 14, I believe, 17 in the second half. And there's kind of your ball game. But a hidden gem that I want to discuss with you about a little bit is obviously the penalty yardage. Over 100 yards and hidden yardage. And Mike Gundy said after the game, that's the ball game. 100%. I mean, when you give a team 100 extra yards, that's not a recipe for success. And we can argue, whether or not a PI should have been called or whatnot, but over half of Texas penalties were pre-snap, and
Yeah.
that's just discipline. I will say this, and I told you this off air. I've been going to Oklahoma State games for around 8-9 years now. That's the second loudest crowd I've ever heard in Boone Pickens, other than Bedlam last year. I mean those last 2 drives for Texas were deafening. So the crowd at BPS brought it. Gundy made adjustments in the second half, and we'll touch a little bit about on that later. But I don't know necessarily if the better team won, but the better coach team won that day, I think. And I think Mike Gundy proved that in the second half. So those are kind of my initial thoughts. We'll bounce around each other and maybe ask a couple questions, but those are my initial thoughts.
I think you're absolutely right in terms of the better coach team won, the more disciplined team won. There is home field advantage that plays into this, especially with us having a quarterback who's in his first road start as a freshman, multiple freshman offensive linemen, multiple guys out there. Guys are in and out of lineup. We get all that. When you look at though the game flow and how bizarre things were, even in the first half, and Texas is still, despite all the Texas getting in their way over and over and over again, they're able to still put 31 points on the board in the first half. You're still, whether you're executing throws or not, whether you're catching the ball or not, guys are open. Now the first half, and I think the first point that we can get to here is the counter was killing Oklahoma State in the first half, and there were some creative things that Sark did with the unbalanced formation and motioning. Jalil Billingsley, welcome back, and them getting some really big runs, both Bijan and Roshan. Obviously, Oklahoma State, Mike Gundy, Derek Mason, those guys adjust, right? And so in the second half, that's not available to you. I want you to speak more to those adjustments here in a sec, but the second half, we can look at this from a micro and a macro perspective. Micro perspective, to me, Texas got rattled. Young guys got rattled on the road, and we flat out didn't execute. I didn't have a whole bunch of issues, especially rewatching this game, with play design and even in some cases play calling. I really didn't. It really just seemed like there's big time opportunities that are there. Your quarterback's having a historically bad performance. You have guys that are questionable effort here and there, especially in throw game, and it becomes a cluster, in the second half. And, whether you start drives, at the 20-yard line and you get 5 yards, right? And so you have all these things happen. But at a macro perspective, this is now Sark's 10-10 through 20 games. Of his 10 losses, he has 7 blown leads. And if we want to get technical, last week against Iowa State, they blew a lead.
Mm-hmm.
They just happened to win the game. And I'm frustrated as a fan, as a Texas fan today, even after a few days of breathing through this, because they didn't learn anything from getting lucky against Iowa State. They got lucky, and they didn't play great football. And they turn around, and you're actually less sharp than you even were at home against Iowa State, against a better defense than Oklahoma State presented. Talk to me about some of the adjustments and things that Mike Gundy and his staff made, because you made the comment we were out coached, which I agree with, but I think we should dive into that.
Yeah, I encourage everybody. This is just something I've done for the past couple of years. I always like going and finding the post-game press conferences from both coaches, the winning coach and the losing coach. I think if you ever want a coach in their most honest state that they will ever be honest with the media, it's probably post-game. I don't know if any coach is a good enough actor to really hide their true feelings, all of them at least.
While the adrenaline is still pumping.
Yeah, exactly. You could see it in Sark a little bit. He was for sure frustrated. And you could see Gundy was almost kind of relieved. But a thing that stuck out about Gundy's press conference, he said, he didn't give his Rockney, Lombardi, Bill Belichick, go get him Tiger speech at halftime. He said he let his assistants coach for an extra 6 minutes. He knew Texas was gashing them on the counter. That's what Roshan took 50 yards, 60 yards to the house, was normal GT counter that we've seen OU do in the past. I mean, that's a middle school play. I mean, it really is. But he said instead of getting mad and getting frustrated, they knew they didn't have enough time to fix it on the sidelines in the second quarter. So Gundy says himself, well, we can just get to halftime and not be down too much. We're going to get it fixed and we're going to roll. That was his direct verbatim quote, is we're going to roll. So you saw Derek Mason get with the linebackers and secondary at halftime. What they did from my vantage point, they brought Kendall Daniels down, a safety, running a 4-4 stack, really, just to have a numbers advantage when Texas went with counter. And essentially, it was 5-on-3. Oklahoma State had 5 guys. Texas had 3. And as well as I do, football is just a numbers game. And if you have good athletes, which Oklahoma State does, you're going to win that battle. And don't get me wrong, they hit inside zone a couple times. Bijan took an inside zone, I think 10-plus yards in the fourth quarter. But the counter was not exploding like it was in the second half. And other than that, I mean, I just think the coaching from, widening out Ford, widening out Tyler Lacey, getting an extra, Sam Backer on the backside or something to just change Quinn's vantage point. If anything, it almost felt like a little high school from Quinn. And I know that that's not a knock on him. I mean, it's just being a young quarterback. It looked like Quinn had his go-to guy. And if that go-to guy was taken away, it was just chunk it and get rid of it. And I think a lot of that had to do with protection. I don't think protection was poor, but Oklahoma State seemed to always dial it up. I mean, just play after play after play, they just kept coming. And I don't know if that was communication. I know Sark said that was the worst their communication had been all year for whatever reason, whether that be road environment or, guys not giving effort. But if your first read's not there, you want to see Quinn step up and go to 2 to 3 to 4 and just progress. And I watched the entire game replay too. There are several times, Stephen, where you see a Jordan Whittington with nobody around him. You see a Jatavian Sanders right at the sticks with a guy 5 yards away. And these are just throws that I think Texas fans expect Quinn to make 100 out of 100 times. But I think we just saw his growing up game. I mean, honestly, I will be shocked if we see Quinn play a worse game in a Texas uniform than we saw this past Saturday. Now, knock on wood, do whatever you want to do. But Oklahoma State is well coached too. And when you make those second half adjustments, that's the thing I wanted to see from Sark. And we talked about it last week. What's your counter going to be, right?
Yep.
When Gundy makes his counter and Derek Mason makes his counter that they've done very well, what is Sark and Flood and those guys' counter going to be? I mean, you have to have a backup. If they take away your counter, you got to be able to run outside zone effectively. You got to be able to run power effectively. I think some of Sark's best play designs are those little kind of fake screens, like that pitch back to Worthy that was wide open for a touchdown. It's the same play they ran to Roshan Johnson in the Red River game. You see that once a game, and it always works. So why not throw it in every 15 or 20 plays? I don't understand that. And then I think Ian Boyd over at Inside Texas calls it Ezekiel's wheel, where Quinn kind of runs an RPO to Bijan and gets the entire defense sucked down. Usually Keelan Robinson or JT Sanders is running man free down the sideline. And you can tell there were so many times where Quinn just gave it to Bijan and Whittington's running free or Keelan's running free. And you're like, man, all that takes is just a pull and a pitch and it's a touchdown, So these are things that I know if we're seeing on film, they're seeing it on film. So as a Texas fan, I wouldn't be too concerned, especially like you said, the play calling wasn't bad. I mean, the plays were there. I mean, we can talk about ball tracking all you want, but that's becoming a major issue too, is just lack of intensity.
It's an epidemic at Texas.
I mean, man, it is like it's jaw dropping at times. You're almost like, I know those guys are crazy athletic, and I know they're very talented. Whether it's Jalen Gilbo being this close from picking it, but he jumps at the wrong time. Whether it's Worthy.
Jump.
I mean, we've seen that from Deshaun Jameson in the past, though, and I love Deshaun Jameson. I think he's a good player, but you see it from Worthy. You saw it from Casey Kane against Iowa State. I mean, I don't know. You guys hit on it in your post game. I don't know what the ball tracking drills look like right now, but it's got to improve. You cannot expect Quinn to be perfect on 40-yard throws. Those are low percentage throws. I mean, even Keelan Robinson late in the game, it looked like a 15-yard out route. I mean, it was an NFL throw, but you're throwing that to Keelan, who, no disrespect to Keelan, he can receive the ball well, but is that the guy you want to be throwing that to?
So let me jump in here, because this leads me to another thing where I think we're on the same page with, while the plays were good, I even think Sark built up some beaters even in throw game to address the numbers. You brought up the numbers in 4-4 stack. That means I'm going to have more throwing lanes on the outside with that many people allocated, that many resources Derek Mason is assigning to take away the run game. Because if I don't take, they knew if we don't take away the run, they're just going to run. Whether or not the quarterback's struggling, it doesn't matter. They're going to keep putting points up. So we need to make him beat us. That's what this turned into. And there's opportunities, like you're saying, guys open over the middle. We have a post corner that's open in the end zone where we have a stumble. So there's execution challenges, not just with the quarterback, but with the pass catchers as well. Jatavian Sanders, has a crucial drop to end the football game, right? And so these things, it's not all on Quinn Ewers. However, from a personnel standpoint, 82 snaps on offense for Texas. And Keelan Robinson, I'm not targeting him in that moment. I agree with you personnel-wise, but he gets a catch opening drive. We always seem to know how to get him involved on the opening drives of these games. Last year, he had a 25-yard, I think it was jet sweep against Oklahoma State. This year, he catches one out of the backfield, easy 16, 17 yards, pitch and catch, right? But then he plays 7 snaps the entire football game on offense. 7 in 82 snaps. Brennan Thompson comes in, quarterback struggling. We call a bubble. Brennan Thompson, easy 32 yards.
Easy.
Was
not even top speed.
No, he's just cruising. And you see, and he plays 6 snaps the whole day. I don't even recall the other 5 snaps, to be honest with you, Austin.
Yeah, I think they were just
were run plays. I don't even remember the other ones he was in there. But
yeah, there was two plays I know for sure. Texas was in like trips right, and he was just a slot guy, and he just dummy blocked, and then they pulled him.
Right. So let me ask you a question. What messages are you sending to your players in your room? Because people are asking about what happened with Savion Red and Brennan Marion on the sideline. Well, I think guys are frustrated by, we give this grace to the quarterback, to the offensive line that's young, freshman. They get to work through problems and challenges and make a whole bunch of mistakes. But it seems like you damn near have to be perfect as a receiver just to get on the field or one of our weapons. And for Brendan Thompson and Keelan Robinson to combine for 13 snaps combined with how easily they can get yardage just at the line of scrimmage, that's where my frustration comes in terms of, are we doing everything? Are we trying to win at all cost?
Mm-hmm.
Are we trying to win at all cost?
Yeah.
Because I'm confused by the personnel decisions, honestly.
Yeah, and I mean, and it goes back, like, the play calling wasn't necessarily a problem, but it could have been better, and that's kind of the question that we're talking about. Like, if we don't think the play calling was bad and it happened, imagine how much better it could have been if Texas were to get those guys involved in the ball in space, right? And like we've heard Sark talk numerous times, I hate guys catching the ball while they're stationary. You're as fast as your defender when you're catching the ball stationary. I want to get guys, catching the ball on the run. Let's go, and we see it in the first half of almost every game. We see a play where we're like, wow, Sark is in his bag. And then it just seems like in the second half, it's almost turtle mode. And it's like, well, we got to run counter or we got to run a slot fade, and then if you get 0 yards on counter and you're incomplete on your slot fade, you're 3rd and 10 from your 25 and Boone Pickens is rocking. And it's like, how did this happen? So quickly. Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at the receiving chart. Worthy was targeted 16 times, 4 receptions. Something's not adding up there. I'm sure it happens. Maybe I just don't pay enough attention to it, but you should have more receptions if you're targeted that much. But then I just look at, like Jatavian Sanders, 6 receptions, Bijan 1, Billingsley 2, Thompson, Whittington, Robinson, Milton, Johnson combined for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 total. So 6 guys, 6 total catches. Where let's just look at Oklahoma State real quick. Green, 5 receptions, Stephon Johnson, 6, JPR, 7, Presley, 7, Gordon, 3, Nixon, 3, Richardson, 5, and then Braylon Presley, 1. I mean, that's volume receiving with multiple weapons. And I know, and for a fact, Texas has the talent to get guys multiple volume receptions. So why is it not happening? I don't know if that's just a trust thing with Quinn. He should trust him because we see it. But 16 targets to Worthy and only 4 receptions, that's almost like, the whole screw it, X is down there somewhere. I'm just going to chunk it, but he needs to trust those other guys.
Well, we talk about getting, and we've had this conversation on Twitter Spaces and all over, folks, about how long do you stay with your primary? This is more football talk, right? How long do you stay with your primary? How you want to try to give X the ball as much as possible. Mm-hmm. My thing though is when you have somebody with that high volume of targets and they had 1 completion behind the line of scrimmage, which was the touchdown, right? Essentially out of the backfield, and then some drag route stuff. And then they did hit on one of the post corners early in the game.
Yep.
But you're spamming all these targets way downfield.
Yep.
So it's not like a Cooper Kupp in the NFL where, I bring him up because Sark went and spent a week with Sean McVay and them. And so one of the things that you see with slot guys, right? So if we're talking about how we move, because Worthy lines up everywhere, but also Jordan Whittington, those are where you can spam a lot of targets and it's more efficient to me. Where we're going to make them take away RPO slant.
Mm-hmm.
Because I haven't seen anybody effectively stop that from us this year, or some of these in-breaking routes. Or we're going to have, some other motions here, or maybe we spam a couple screens or spam something lateral, but just some stuff that we stay in rhythm. When you're consistently throwing that and we're off and the guys are slipping and we're off and off and off, it's not an efficient manner of offense. Like you said, I'm ending up in 3rd and 10. I'm consistently 2nd and 10. And then you mix in the pre-snap penalties as well.
Quickly.
It becomes too challenging for the offense.
And I'll ask you this. Do you think, this is just me and what I saw with my own eyes and a little bit of what I've seen of Quinn this year. And don't get me wrong, I'm a Quinn fan. I think he's a great player. Do you think that Quinn doesn't fully take advantage of what the defense gives him? Do you kind of see him try to make that level 10 throw when the level 4 throw is there? Do you see that, or am I crazy?
No, he 100% does. And the thing is, he is good enough to make the throw,
Mhm.
but it's unnecessary, right? And that's where growth comes. But he's also going to have to put in the time away from Saturday, right? Throughout the week, film study, really understanding the offense. He's not there yet in his understanding. He's not. I think he can, when he has boom boom, or if it's a 1-2 read or high low boom boom, and he comes off play action, he can process very quickly and get the ball out. But when it comes to some of the things we saw, or even last week against Iowa State, where it's like, dude, you have a little bit of time. Not the pass rush is effective from Oklahoma State, but it's not something crazy to where you can't
No.
breathe.
Not
Right?
anything that he has not seen. I mean, Bama was
No,
coming with ears pinned, and he was standing in there knowing he was going to get blown up. But that's what you sign up for, right?
absolutely. But it's different when you have to start working progression wise right to left.
Yep.
Right. And it's like, okay, 1 to 2 to 3. Okay, 3 now 3 is Whittington and he's screaming. But you have to be able to have some of that patience and say, all right, I have this over here. Or numbers game, right? Y'all, you see Jason Taylor and them go and start jumping the wheel. So I know, okay, they're starting to drift over here. They're leaving the middle of the field
Mm-hmm.
to anticipate your wheel. So Sark,
Let's run your
AJ Millie,
crossers.
y'all, there's the counter, right?
Yep.
There's built-in counters there. But that's also communicating that to the quarterback, because I do see the route concepts where there's beaters there with what they ran, but the quarterback's not throwing it there. He's still throwing it as if it's the first half to the wheel. So we have to coach all that together. Real quick, I want to address the defense because I think people are starting to go a little overboard in the blame there. I actually thought outside of the Jaden Nixon run, and yeah, we gave up some stuff at the goal line and short yardage that we've struggled with a little bit, but I was pleased with the run defense. I was actually pleased for the most part with how we contained Spencer. Spencer's going to get yards. He's one of the best athletes in the conference. So there's certain things where it's just like you're going to concede some of those.
Mm-hmm.
I do think my frustration, again, we talk about ball tracking, but also we lose a Cook, and they said he's has a broken arm and he's going to be out a couple weeks. But
Day to day with a broken arm. Never
day
heard
to
of
day
that.
with a broken arm, baby.
Hey, but aren't we all day to day?
Yeah. Where I think for me, where my challenge is on the defense is I don't see poor coaching. I don't.
Nope.
I do not see poor coaching. Ovia Gofu blew his assignment. That's correct. That's just he needs to be accountable and fix that. The slants are green. Y'all run double. Oklahoma State runs double slants. Jalen Ford misses. Deshaun Jameson misses. Keaton Crawford's helping somebody up while the play's going on.
Oh my goodness, that was right in
They
front of me.
run to the end zone. That's not coaching to me in terms of like schematic, like, oh, we're sitting like it was early in the season, right? Where we were getting mad about death by 1,000 paper cuts. I'm more so seeing two things. You don't have a scary elite edge. When we came to Stillwater the last time, we had Joseph Osai. That was the difference. Period.
Won the game.
Won the game. Literally won the game. So we don't have an elite edge, and we don't have a playmaker defensively on the back end. Like you watch the Dallas Cowboys fan. You're a Cowboys fan. You got Micah Parsons, you got Tank Lawrence, and you got Trayvon Diggs in the back. That alone, just those three, and the rest of the defense is nice. But when you think about what Micah does, what Tank does, and then what Trayvon's able to do on the back end, Texas has none of those pieces in terms of the profile. Even what Oklahoma State has on the back end with Jason Taylor. If we had any of those pieces, I think we have. I mean, it's just frustrating from that standpoint there to hear people blaming the coaching when this is really gaps with our personnel defensively. Do you agree or disagree with that?
I totally agree. To your point of just nobody there yet. I think for Texas fans, they're coming. I think they're coming. I think that freshman class, I think BJ Allen is one of the best high school football players I've seen. When he's ready, he can be really good. I mean, we're seeing the youth out of Texas right now. I mean, Michael Taft, he's a football player. I mean, Austin Westlake, all-state kid, is going to know his assignment. He's going to know where he needs to be and when he needs to be there. I think right now, athletically, he's just a hair slower than he needs to be. But he's being asked to do something that I'm going to go out on a limb. I don't know if 80% of Texas football fans knew who Michael Taffy was going into this year. If you follow the program, maybe, but
Maybe they know him because of Arch.
yeah, maybe. I still think he needs to be put on scholarship just because of that. But
And get him
anyways,
an NIL deal too for his services.
I mean, he had 6 total tackles. I mean, I think Jaron Thompson played a great game too. I really do. But yeah, there's just some things that I notice on the defensive end that, when the going gets tough, when they need a stop, it seems like you want to be like, oh, well, they just never get the stop. But look in the second half. Texas had a lot of drives in the second half. They got their stops. But eventually, any good defense, I mean, and I say this truly, any good defense, when you face against a high number of plays, you're going to break eventually with the field position game and all of that. And then, obviously bad play by Deshaun Jameson. You gotta wrap up and hold on for dear life. But then again, here's another play that goes back to execution. There is a play where Jaden Nixon, freshman running back, I think breaks a long run. He is at the 34-yard line, I think. You know what I'm talking about. There's 5 Longhorns around him. He is pushed out at the 11-yard line. That is a problem to me.
It reminded me of the CD Lamb.
Yes, BJ Foster, nightmares. Just that's not coaching, in my opinion. Like the PK and GP cannot go out there and do that for you. I mean, and same thing with Crawford. I think Keaton Crawford's a great special teams player. He's clearly not there yet, with Jaron Thompson at the safety position. He's just not. And what kind of stinks is he's going to be asked to, because I know they say Cook is day to day. I don't think he's going to play at least before
K-State.
No, but before TCU, maybe if they're lucky. But they're going to have to grow up really quickly. I think the biggest thing for the defense, and I'll leave the defensive talk with this, is there's still guys that are playing hard and making plays. Just filling up the stat sheet. Jahdae Barron had 12 total tackles. Overshone had 8. I mean, Ogofu had 7, and I thought he broke his arm at one point. He came back in. Jalen Ford had 6 and a couple sacks. I mean, there are guys making plays. But to your point, yes, I agree. Texas does not have, a Michael Huff or a, Sergio Kindle or, guys that you've seen in the past where you're like, oh, man, if this guy gets free, game breaker. They have guys that show flashes and spurts, but nobody they can really truly rely on. I mean, with the Dallas Cowboys that, I mean, anytime you see Micah line up in a 5, you're like, watch this. Like this is gonna be special.
And I want to be clear with people too, right? Like you said, Jahdae Barron, Jalen Ford. Jalen Ford's going to be, he's right there for all Big 12 honors. I think Jahdae Barron has a case for all Big 12 honors. I think Tavondre Sweat and Coburn,
players
can make their case. They're really good players. This isn't a hammer, but we're talking about playmakers, special. So I'll give you an example. We don't have a Bijan Robinson on defense.
Great point.
That's what I'm talking about. It's not whether or not somebody is, we have players on the defense that are going to play in the NFL, and some of them are going to end up being starters for their NFL teams. But we don't have a guy where he's just going to go and do something and get the ball back or force a -20 or something crazy to on a 4th and 2 where he can just defeat everything and defeat physics and make a play. So
Not yet. I think it's coming. But not yet. Not right now.
But to the credit of the staff and to the credit of the players, this team has improved so much defensively year over year. I'm still very proud of them. I know they gave up 41 points, but like you said, 98 plays. Complimentary football failed them in this game. Absolutely failed them.
They still held OSU to less than their scoring average. OSU scores 46 a game.
46 a game. So you held them below, and you're not going to hold people to 20 points every game. Texas's average is still, I think, around the 21, 22 mark on the season. And when you look at all of their metrics, Texas is still 31st overall in total defense after we were 99th last season. That's year 2 of PK. And the draft stock that's improved for so many guys up front, especially, there's things to be encouraged by. I still think there's good news. I'm just upset that we're not capitalizing on the improvements and the efforts and those guys getting rewarded more for it. But let's move on, because I want to, Oklahoma State won this football game, and it was a must-win game, I felt like, for both teams in terms of the Big 12 race. As we wrap up on Texas is in a tough spot because you now lose the tiebreaker to Oklahoma State. TCU still undefeated. And now you're in this conundrum where you're going to need, some things to happen that are no longer in Texas's control. I'll put it that way. But as for Oklahoma State and just overall Big 12 outlook, some big games coming up, right? In terms of how this thing shakes out. What's your overall outlook for this conference moving forward, Austin?
Yeah, I mean, it's still mathematically, technically almost anybody's ball game. I'll say this for Texas: they got to win the games in front of them before they even start worrying about anybody else. I mean, they know that their margin for error, if it's not already past being razor thin, it's razor thin. You're going to need TCU to take a couple L's. You're going to need probably Oklahoma State to beat K-State, and then you go beat K-State the next week to quote unquote knock them out. Man, I don't know. This might seem like a slide on TCU. It seems like, you've seen the talk on Twitter about how they've played everybody's backup quarterback. I do not think they will survive their next 4 games without at least a loss. I just don't. Even West Virginia, I mean, they're only 7-point favorites in Morgantown. You know how weird Morgantown is, but this conference is just, it almost seems like if you have a big lead, you're going to lose. I mean, Kansas State was up 28-10, took the L. Oklahoma State was up, they had 31 points at half, took the L. I mean, Baylor, Kansas made that scary in the second half.
Kansas made that scary. I thought Baylor I dismissed that game, and then I look at the score, I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah, it's just, man, it's so, I don't know. It's almost like, man, would you rather be tied at halftime than up by 3 scores? Because it just seems like the doubt creeps in your mind, and you got to remember, these are kids still. They're not professional athletes. And when they look at the scoreboard and that lead dwindles from 21 to 14, 14 to 7, 7 to, it just, and you're like, oh my gosh, we're tied. And there's 3 minutes left and we have the ball and we're going to go win. Right. I don't know. I think for Oklahoma State, obviously, this is the game of the year for them at Kansas State. A banged up Kansas State, I'll say that. They got 4 or 5 guys that are questionable, so that could benefit them. And then going into the bye week, because we're going to focus on Texas, obviously, especially on this channel, it almost seems like that OSU loss hurts 2 times as bad because you're going into a bye week with that bad taste in your mouth, and you don't play another game for 14 days. I mean, that is just
answered the question I was going to ask you. Is it good or bad to have a bye week right now?
I think you can answer yes and no, but imagine the feeling, at Moncrief if they would have won that game. Imagine the headlines being spoken about them if they would have won that game. Now, does that change who they are? No, because you are what your record says you are, right? Bill Parcells.
Thank you.
But I don't know. It depends. I was talking with a buddy after the game, and I'm like, with this age and NIL and transfer portal, and what have you done for me lately? Do you see this Texas team rally around each other and say, hey, we still got something to prove? We can theoretically end this season 11-3. Theoretically, right? If they win out, win the Big 12 championship, and win their bowl game, that's 11 wins. Now, are they going to? I'll just say no, they're not going to. But they could, right? The mentality has to be we can, right? But you see a team that could turn the other way, and this thing can spiral out of control like we saw last year.
That's my concern. They're not bowl eligible yet.
I don't know. I cannot see a world where Bijan and Roshan and, Sweat and Coburn, some of those older guys let that happen. I can't see it. I could be wrong, but I don't think the culture is in a place where it was maybe 2 or 3 years ago where that wouldn't surprise anybody. But no, this conference will probably have implications going into December with just how tight everything is. I mean, TCU, who's to say they couldn't lose their next 2 games? I mean, I'm not going to say that. So it's anybody's game, man. I mean, Baylor's got a tough one, obviously, on the road in Lubbock with Tyler Shuck back potentially. I mean, who knows? I mean, we could talk all day about Big 12, but to answer your question you didn't ask, I'm going to say it's bad to lose going into the bye week just because of the aura that your team has to deal with for the next 14 days. But you can make it good. You can.
You can. I think so. The frustration too is not even the frustration. The frustration needs to become a positive change for the last 4 games. If you're going to burn people's red shirts, use them.
Mm-hmm.
Don't burn my red shirt and then play me 2 snaps. Don't burn my red shirt and play me 5 snaps. We know who we're talking about. I don't need to go any further than that. If you have guys like a Jalil Billingsley, who I really like the way he played in the Oklahoma State game, figure out some creative ways to keep using him in throw game and run game. He was part of that GT package, and use these next 2 weeks. Quinn Ewers knows what he needs to do. He already said it after the game, so I'm not going to beat that dead horse. He knows he needs to. What he does in between the week will determine how sharp he is. He should never look that out of sync with his receivers again. He knows what he needs to do. My last thing is they need to do a deep dive, not just schematically, not just film and eye tests, but upstairs as a staff on what is happening in the second half to where there is such a discrepancy, especially against good competition, because that's all you're playing these last 4 games. Okay. And you guys are averaging, I think we did the numbers in our post-game live. I think it's like 10 points against Power 5 competition in the second half. You had 3 points this past week in the second half. Something is going on, whether you get conservative with your play calling or then when you get aggressive, your players can't execute. But we're able to know, regardless of if we're playing clean or not, we can put points up like crazy in the first half. That needs to be studied. We will do it as YouTubers and content creators ourselves, but I need them to go there and figure that out. How do you think this plays out? My last question to you, because we got to roll. What is your prediction for these last 4 games?
I've gone back and forth. You just want to give me? I can go with my gut and just give you win loss the last 4 games. I think they bounce back and I think they beat Kansas State. I really do. And if they don't, we are going to get into territory that we have never seen as college football fans, with a team that just loses second half leads as much as they do. And they very
went on the road, because that's another road thing right off the bat.
Here's what my gut tells me. I always want to go with my gut. I think they will bounce back and be fresh, healthy, rested into Kansas State, which already beat up, and they're going to play a very physical team this Saturday in Oklahoma State with a chance to be more beat up. But I think Texas will go into Manhattan and play well. I really genuinely believe that. And I think all eyes are going to be on that November 12th game in Austin against TCU, especially if they take care of business. That could be the biggest game of the year for Sark, for the program, for the trajectory. I mean, a chance to knock off an 8-0 team in Austin, a chance to get your 7th win, a chance to be right back in the mix for the Big 12. I mean, we could talk about implications when that comes, if they come. But I see that as a game that Texas breaks through at DKR and doesn't feel that Bama all woulda, coulda, shoulda. I mean, I really believe they win their next 2 games. I genuinely believe that. I think they can go into Lawrence. I think they can handle business and win that game. And then the last game at DKR against Baylor, all signs would point for Texas to win that game. But as we've seen in the past, there would be a hiccup. So I would say Baylor pulls something, and Aranda's just so good scheme-wise. We saw it last year in the second half of that Baylor Texas game. I mean, just a tale of two halves. But when they want to run the ball, people forget Baylor has the best O-line in the Big 12. It's not even close. I will say their next 4 games, Texas will go 3-1. I predict wins at K-State, TCU at home, at Kansas with a loss to Baylor. They could easily go 3-1 against other teams with that loss being against somebody else. But I really do. I don't know why, but that's what my gut is telling me. I feel optimistic about them. I really do.
I'm between 2-2 and 3-1 down the stretch. Until they show me, it's hard for me to give benefit of the doubt.
Same.
You have to show me, because what we're talking about is even an 8-0 TCU that you could potentially face, assuming they handle their business against West Virginia. You probably will still, even TCU, you're still probably going to have better personnel, right?
Oh, like, they're going to be favored in every game.
You're going to be favored in every game. I mean, if we look at Mike Gundy versus Steve Sarkisian, if you gave Mike Gundy Sark's team, like I'm just saying, I'm just saying, if you gave Mike Gundy if we flip rosters, trade rosters. So where I'm coming at this from also is my head coach needs to figure out how to be a better head coach on game day in terms of finding the right way to inspire his team and push the right buttons to get performance out of them. My head coach is wrestling with being an offensive coordinator. And I think he's a very good head coach Monday through Friday. I really do. And I think he's a very head coach representing the university. I think he's a very good head coach recruiting and connecting with young men and families. He turns off his head coach hat during football games. I need him to be connected also with the defense, special teams, having that connection with your players. I think Sark sometimes gets lost in the play sheet and trying to figure out things. And I need you to, because until I see that, I can't trust them to be better than 2-2 in this last stretch. Maybe 3-1, but I'm that's where my fear comes in, Austin. But
I'll say this. I'll end my take on this. If they go 3-1, what's their final record? 8-4.
8-4.
It's what a lot of people expected.
A lot of people predicted them.
It's where a lot of people expected, and a lot of people, and you're lying if you say you're not. A lot of people said I would be happy with 8-4. So if they go 3-1 and the season's over, and whether they win or lose their bowl game or not, you cannot be mad going 5-7 and then going 8-4. That is dramatic improvement that not a lot of programs consistently can do. That's just a fact.
Especially if you finish the season strong and we see improvement in the second half of games.
For sure.
I think that will even change how we felt about blowing other games, because we're like, well, you know what? It sucks that we blew those games, but we learned from it. The coaches were able to figure it out after the bye week. The players were able to have better composure down the stretch of games and maintain consistency. If they have the same struggles down these last 4 games, people are going to be asking very serious questions.
Yep.
They have to clean this up over the last 4 games.
K-State can very easily for Texas be a UTSA game, I think, where they get down, they face some adversity, dig out of it, fight through it, and get the heck out of there. That can do wonders for that locker room.
Especially really getting your first road win like that. So Austin, where can the people find you, man?
Yeah, Twitter at Austin Taylor with an extra R, and then on Instagram _ Austin C Taylor _ follow everybody back.
Appreciate you, brother, coming on. Everybody, like we always say, it's free to show love. Hit the like button, subscribe, go follow Austin on all social media platforms. And you know what? You're looking for a betting partner. Austin even gave y'all out some Big 12 juice for this week coming up. If you're looking for a partner to bet with, hit up BUSR, busr.com/fanatic, promo code sports100FP. Use that promo code, 100% free play match on all initial deposits within the first 24 hours. You get some casino chips with that. Amazing customer service. Great way to take advantage. I'm hitting on player prop bets in the NFL, NBA, blocks, rebounds, assists, all sorts of cool things you can do on there. Props builder, custom props builder we have. So shout out to busr.com/fanatic. And then the hat I'm rocking, Texas football hat right there. Hit up Last Stand Hats, brand new sponsor, Fanatic Perspective. LastStandHats.com/Fanatic Perspective. Use that promo code Fanatic10, 10% off at checkout. Great apparel company. We love what they're doing. If you're an Oklahoma State fan watching this video, raining on Texas right now. They have merch for you as well on the website. It's on me. Take that Fanatic 10 code and go have some fun. Austin, thanks for joining, brother. I really appreciate it. Y'all, remember, horns always up. Peace.